Forensic genealogy, the process of identifying unknown offenders through their DNA by finding genetic relatives and building out family trees. It's taken the crime-solving world by storm. How does it work, and what are these cases all about? Find out on Season 4 of DNA ID, the only podcast that exclusively covers the revolutionary technique that is forensic genealogy. This season, you'll hear more than 20 solved cases like Pamela Kahanis, Rachel Johnson, and Krista Martin. And of course, we'll continue with our coverage of doe identifications that we began in Season 3. Don't miss the Season 4 premiere of DNA ID on Monday, January 29th, wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to Missing Persons, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including The Murder in My Family, DNA ID, Zodiac Speaking, Scene of the Crime,
Beyond Bizarre True Crime,
Citizen Detective,
and Campus Killings.
All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its creators, or sponsors. If you would like to discuss a missing persons case on this podcast, please be sure to visit missingpersonspodcast.net. This episode may contain unsettling or disturbing subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
If you'd like to support Missing Persons and get VIP access to things like ad-free listening, early preview episodes, and bonus content of not only this show, but for every other podcast on the AbJack network of indie podcasts, consider subscribing to the show with an AbJack Insider subscription through Apple Podcast. For only $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year, you'll unlock a variety of listener benefits, and you'll be supporting the show in the process. Your support is greatly appreciated.
Welcome to Missing Persons, a podcast dedicated to spreading the word about people who have vanished under mysterious or unexplained circumstances and the family members who are looking for answers. I'm Jess Betancourt.
And I'm Mike Morford. Together, we created this podcast to help give a voice to people who continue to search for their missing loved ones. In some cases, even after decades have gone by. In each episode, you'll hear from Jess giving listeners the backstory and the basic facts of the disappearance.
Then Mike will speak with someone who's intimately connected to the missing person, and his guest will share their story with us. So sit back and enjoy this episode, and who knows, maybe you can help us find someone who's missing. In 2021, Elena Roy lived in the 900 block of Wood Creek Drive in Fallbrook, California, with her husband of 14 years, Chris Cataldo. In early November, she vanished. A little background on Elena. She was born on November 16, 1937, in Orange County, California. Elena comes from a large extended family who describes her as a social butterfly, someone upbeat and charming, the family matriarch. Elena's husband, the father of her 3 children, Tammy, Jessica, and Jerry, died in 1973. Elena was married once after that, but was single when, in around 2006, she met Chris Cataldo, 20 years her junior, at Aletheia Christian Fellowship Church in Wildomar. Chris was working at the church through a halfway house program designed to reintegrate felons into society. He had served 7 years in prison for burglary. Chris and Elena became inseparable, and over the objections of her adult children, in 2007 the couple had a commitment ceremony that bound them together in the eyes of the church, even though it was not recognized as a legal marriage. Elena was at the time the co-owner of a retail antique store. She's since retired, and she and Chris moved to Fallbrook, where Elena had family, in 2013. Elena's family at first did not trust Chris's motives for marrying her. She was significantly older than he was. But they came around as Elena seemed happy, and Chris seemed to treat her well. The two were always together, going for walks, doing errands, and spending all their time with one another. Eventually, though, it seemed as though Chris was isolating Elena from her family. According to Chris, Elena had worsening dementia and was easy to anger and subject to mood swings and forgetfulness. He told the media that Elena was able to communicate and could hold a conversation, but that she would likely not remember her address or phone number. Elena's family confirms that she had received a diagnosis of early-stage dementia from her general practitioner. Now for the disappearance. Chris reported that on the afternoon of Wednesday, November 3rd, 2021, the two had a minor argument over the placement of a framed photo, and sometime between 1:30 and 1:45 p.m., Elena left the house angry. She was carrying her purse. According to Chris, Elena had walked away once before, in August of 2020. He said she was angry about him adjusting her face mask, so she walked out of the grocery outlet store where they were shopping together and was gone before he noticed. That night, a fireman had driven by Elena walking on the side of a narrow, 2-lane road in the dark. This is Deleuze Road, which leads out of Fallbrook to the Santa Margarita Preserve. The fireman was concerned and turned around and offered Elena, who was in her 80s, a ride. The fireman brought Elena to the sheriff's substation because she was disoriented and couldn't recall where she lived. Her ID had an old address on it. It's unclear how they determined where she lived and got in touch with Chris, but he came to pick her up and took her home. Elena's family did not learn about this event until after Elena went missing again, when the fireman contacted the family on their Facebook page for Elena and said, "I think this is the lady I picked up a year ago." Chris had never informed them that Elena had wandered off and gotten lost. Now, on November 3rd, 2021, Elena was gone for several hours. Chris went out to look for her, he said, around dusk. She was an avid walker, he said, but always came home after about an hour, except for the one time when she was found by others. Elena had promised her husband never to do that again, he said. He explained that because of her dementia, Elena did not like to be separated from her husband, Chris, and they spent all of their time together. Yet this time she walked off and didn't come back, he maintained. When he did not find her, Chris spoke to his sister, who advised him to call the sheriff's office. He did so at 7:17 p.m., calling the San Diego County Sheriff's Department Fallbrook substation. A deputy arrived at the house to speak with Chris around 7:55 p.m. Chris did not inform Elena's children of their mother going missing until she had been gone 7 hours, calling her daughter Jessica around 8:45 p.m. after he'd spoken with sheriff's deputies for about an hour. He called Jessica and told her not to panic. Jessica, who lived in Fallbrook, was upset that she hadn't been called earlier. She and Elena's other children banded together and searched for her throughout the night, along with sheriff's deputies. Elena did not have a cell phone, and all Chris said she had with her was a debit card and a little cash. Elena's children were involved in the search for her in the days after her disappearance, with other volunteers and the sheriff's department search and rescue team. Her son, Jerry, said that the sheriff's department canvassed the neighbors in search of ring camera footage that might show Elena. For the first 48 hours, search and rescue teams used dogs, helicopters, and drones to look for Elena, but after that, they stopped their search operations. Police have said that tracking dogs never detected Elena's scent anywhere in town. Volunteer searches continued for several days with no luck. The family plastered the town with flyers bearing Elena's photo and began working with professional searcher Raina Solomon of the Heart Foundation, who told the Village News of a search held 2 weeks after Elena vanished, quote, "There were about 100 volunteers and members of the Fallbrook community who came out to assist in searching a grid of 1.5 to 2 mile radius beginning at Elena Roy's home. The volunteers went door to door, requesting homeowners search their yards, and assisted residences with each property search. Roadways, bushes, parks, tree lines, stores, abandoned vehicles, nearby ravines, large fields, and waterways were checked by the volunteers, and Elena was not found or any of her belongings," end quote. Solomon went on to explain, quote, "Usually those suffering with dementia are found within 1.5 miles from home. So we decided to take our search area to 2 miles, but we were not successful in locating her," end quote. The volunteer searches expanded to cover an astonishingly large area. "We've checked roadways from Live Oak Park to Mission Road," Solomon said. "We checked all of downtown and anywhere she could have fallen into a ravine or culvert. We checked the road going up both sides and walked Sandia Creek. We started in the downtown area and have gone down South Mission all the way to 76. About 4 weeks after Elena vanished, the San Diego County Sheriff's Office conducted an official large-scale search for her. From a sheriff's news release, quote, "On November 13, 2021, the Sheriff's Homicide Unit accepted Elena's missing person case. The reassignment of missing persons cases to the Homicide Unit does not denote suspicion of homicide, and administratively occurs on all missing persons cases where the person is outstanding. Homicide detectives recontacted Elena's husband and her family. On November 27th, about 60 volunteers with search and rescue conducted an exhaustive all-day search of the Santa Margarita riverbed area. The specially trained SAR volunteers searched the expansive area on foot, as well as utilizing off-road vehicles, canines, and drones. The sheriff's dive team also responded to search a shallow pond and a river in the area. Despite their efforts, Elena was not located, and her whereabouts are still unknown. Elena's regular mechanic, Eric, at Fallbrook Auto Works, told the family he was certain he saw her on the east side of Main Street on Wednesday afternoon, sometime between 1 and 2 p.m. She was walking north. Another man named Ramon, who knew Elena, told a PI hired by Chris Cataldo that he spoke to her on Wednesday afternoon as well. Video surveillance footage of the areas of these supposed sightings by Eric and Ramon refute their accuracy. Elena has never been seen on any video on or after November 3rd, 2021. There were numerous other possible sightings of Elena reported over the ensuing days, but none of them have proven to be her. Surveillance video from a grocery store taken on November 2nd does show Chris Cataldo and Elena Roy walking in the store. This was on the day before she vanished. In the video, she is wearing the same outfit that Chris described her as wearing when she went missing. Store surveillance cameras show them leaving together and exiting the parking lot in his car. Chris told the Village News, a local news site, quote, "I would die for her. I would die for her right now today to have her back, and that is no joke. The only thing that matters to me is that she shows up, period." 5 months after she went missing, there was an all-volunteer search for Elena in the Santa Margarita Preserve, which is where Elena was found wandering the first time she wandered off. But she wasn't located there either. In February 2022, Elena's children learned that Chris Cataldo had sold their mother's car. Soon thereafter, Chris called Elena's daughter Tammy and asked her to come over to the house to get some of her mother's things. In April 2022, Tammy and her family learned that Chris was having a yard sale at the house. They went over there and saw that he was indeed selling off the remainder of Elena's personal possessions. Tammy and Chris got into an argument about this, and the sheriff's department deputies had to get involved. Chris moved out soon after that, leaving Fallbrook altogether. After Chris moved out of the house, Fallbrook police declined to search it. The family hired a PI, retired Detective John Powers, who tracked down Elena's sold vehicle and sought to have it forensically examined. But that never happened as the new buyers balked. The family believes that Chris Cataldo has accessed Elena's bank account and withdrawn funds totaling $7,900 since her disappearance. They state that he was not an authorized signatory on the account, and he repeatedly reported to police that there had been no activity on the account. He also kept her Social Security payments until the family reported her disappearance and the payments ceased. The family and Chris Cataldo paid to fund a reward of $9,000 to supplement the $1,000 Crime Stoppers reward being offered by the Sheriff's Department. The family has also arranged for a billboard to be erected publicizing Elena's missing status, and have started a Facebook page to spread the word about her case. Elena Carlotta Lorea Roy would now be 86 years old. She is 5 foot 4 inches tall and weighs 120 pounds. She is Caucasian and has short, dark, graying hair. According to Chris, she was last known to be wearing a white, light blue, and dark blue short-sleeve top and black Levi's jeans, a silver bracelet, blue and brown slip-on shoes, a cream-colored beanie, a Timex watch with a brown leather band, and glasses. She was carrying her purse containing her bank card. Elena's daughter Tammy is our guest today. She sat down to talk with Mike Morford about her mother's case. That conversation is coming up after a word from our sponsors.
Hi, Tammy, and thank you for coming on Missing Persons to discuss your mom, Elena's case with us.
Hi, Mike.
I'm happy to have you here. I hope we can help you spread the word and get some answers. I know your mom's been missing for over 2 years now, and this time's probably been incredibly difficult for you. before we get into the details of surrounding her disappearance and what happened, can you tell us a little bit about your mom herself?
Oh, yeah. Well, she was widowed in 1973, so she has 3 kids, and we've been very close ever since. Um, all my friends loved her. She's fun-loving. She's tiny. She's like 5'4". We're all taller. Very good sense of humor. Very good cook. We were friends. My mom and I were friends. And in the last 5 years before her disappearance, she started having memory issues. She knew all of us. She knew all of our names, but she would repeat herself. Um, and so we talked on the phone all the time, but when this started, we didn't talk on the phone as much. She didn't like to stay on the phone. And then right before she went missing, it was getting hard to see her. I had retired. Well, I had retired and I live 30 miles away, so I didn't stop by every day like I used to on my way home from work. I think she got a little bit isolated, and the memory issues she was having. She's her social circle is her family. So there was no issues between us. I mean, we have everything that all families do, right? But there was no feud, no issues between us at all, ever. And if there was, we made up. I mean, it's been the 4 of us for so long. That's our story. My mom comes from a big family. So did my dad. So we have lots of relatives.
Okay.
She was retired too, of course.
So you mentioned your family being big. Your father had died in what, 1973, you said, and then she had met somebody and started a relationship with somebody else, Chris, who we're going to talk about for sure. How long were they together, and what was the relationship like between them?
You're going way fast forward. So this is in the early 2000s. My mom was 69 at the time. She met Chris at church. There's like a 20-some year, 21 or something year gap, which is no big deal. I mean, I know my mom, it's awkward because he's a man, she's a woman, but it's no big deal. So they met at church. The church in Wildemar where they met has a reentry program for felons. And he was working there at that time. I don't know in what capacity. I think he helped the pastor there, who is his good friend. Pastor's name is Pastor Jack. They met, and when they did, like I said, my mom was 69. She acted different. She acted like a teenager. It was kind of humorous at first, but then it was all kind of odd too, because my mom just didn't do that. Like uh he would call and she'd be very secretive, right? And she was living with my sister at that time, so uh um my sister knew exactly what was going on. We find out that she's dating, and because it's been so secretive, we have a retired family member, retired cop, and he does a background check, and we find out that he is a felon. And I mean, not just, there were pages. If you're going to ask me exactly what, I didn't look at it that much because I was concerned about my mom. I knew it would go one of 2 ways. We had an intervention, long story short. We had an intervention in which we told my mom this, and she knew, and she was extremely hurt, I think, because of the way it was done. There was extended family members there. And so uh, my concern from then going forward, because I respect my mom and, just as a human, I apologized. I knew I knew the relationship was not going to end there, and she knew about it. So we stayed in her life, myself, my sister, and my brother. And there was a big split with her sister. over this because of an action Chris took after the intervention. He had one of his friends call. So my mom and her sister didn't talk for a very long time. I felt like I apologized to my mom. I had no problem with it. I, I love my mom. Um, I don't think Chris ever forgave us. He had a big chip on his shoulder about lots of things, and that was one of them.
I am curious, and not for a complete rundown of his crimes, but I mean, were these things like white collar crimes or drugs or
Well, I think
theft?
he is a graduate of Berkeley. I found out since looking for my mom. I knew he was, but he had told my mom had told me that he was majored in psychology, that he had a degree. Well, I did a background check. I can't find that, but he did attend Berkeley for a certificate in, I believe it was some type of project management. That's all I can find. That doesn't mean that what he said wasn't true. That's all I could find. So, he got involved in drugs, and then he was sent to prison for entering homes. I guess what he would do is check to see if it was locked or not, and walk in and rob them. And he got caught, and he got sent away fairly. I think he was in his 30s because he would work for the city of Santa Monica till I think like 1991. And I don't have all those details because you can't, some things show up, but not everything going back that far either.
Sure.
So
these were serious crimes, but there was no history of violence that you know of in his background.
No, not as far as, not that I don't have that paperwork in front of me. Not that I recall. No.
Okay. And what was the relationship like? I know you said it was a little bit strained, and he maybe was upset with you guys for doing a background check on him. What was the relationship like between him and your mom, as far as you could tell?
Oh, every time. That's why we decided to stay in her life. They had fun together at the beginning. I know there was probably problems, but they seemed every time I went there to get along well. My mother is a great caretaker, I have to say that, and he is way different. So she seemed happy. I know there were some issues, just like everybody has, but it did not seem anything that we had to worry about because, again, although her and her sister had been estranged for a while, they eventually, as I knew they would, were back together, and Chris would be going over to my Aunt Tina's, her sister's name is Tina, all the time with them. He attended most family gatherings. We have a lot of them. So their relationship while they were together was good. Now, when I tried to get a hold of her in that last 5 years, I'll say starting from 2017 to the time she went missing, it was very hard. He kept saying they didn't want to get together. She doesn't want to get together, which may be true. I'm not an expert on problems like that. But every time we saw my mother, the first thing she did was come up and hug us. And she likes her privacy, but she doesn't like complete solitude. She never has. So that was odd to me. And we kept trying. My sister and her family, her son and his family live in Fallbrook, near where they were living. And my sister, she works full time. So does her son's family, but they got together. She went to see my mom all the time during this. And he would get irritated with her sometimes. And we did that because it wasn't like my mom to not want to talk to us. It wasn't like her at all. And he blamed it on us. He would say, your mom doesn't want to see you. Well, that may be true, but don't talk to us like that. You know what I'm saying? He made us suspicious. Mom doesn't want to see you. Okay, well, when is she going to be available, et cetera, et cetera. It just was not my mom.
And how often would you say that you did get to see her, or somebody in the family at least would get to see her and know that she was okay?
He would take her to see my aunt, she lives near me. in Temecula, probably 15 miles away. I live 30 miles away from Fallbrook. And my Aunt Tina saw her more in 2020. I saw my mother, I think, once in 2020, once or twice in that year. Previous, I had seen her at least a couple of times, seen her, talk to her a couple of times a week or more. It was hard to get her on the phone. We used to stay on the phone for hours, but that's, that's okay. And we never, the children, us, we never got to talk to my mom about what was happening to her. I think that's the hardest thing of this whole issue.
Yeah. You mentioned memory loss and things like that. And it was, I think I read one report that she had dementia as well as some other medical issues.
She did not like to take medication. I think she had high blood pressure too, but she wouldn't go to the doctor. So I think a lot of these things and being isolated made what was happening to her worse. That's what I think after knowing my mom.
And once you start getting up there in age, even me, I'm in my 50s and I feel things that I didn't feel, 10 years ago, but I it's natural.
I have a picture of my mother at my age on my Facebook page. She looked 20 years younger.
Well,
She was a little spitfire. Now, I know I went there one time before 2020 she loved the whole family. She was there at births, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, etc. So I had my grandchildren and my first, well, no, that was her grandchildren too. My daughters are far apart in age. Anyway, I took them over and she was flustered. She liked to cook, but she did not like having that many people there. I could tell right away, and I didn't do that again. We used to do that all the time. So yes, there were issues with her getting older.
Were there also physical ailments? Like I read that she had some kind of shin issues or some kind of foot issues as well.
She had raised, they think, this is all coming from Chris, her toes, when they lived in Montana for a year, and she almost got frostbite or something happened with her toes, and he thought it was Reye syndrome. Now, I think it's I might be pronouncing it wrong, Reyes, Reye syndrome or something like that. I don't know that a doctor had diagnosed that. She had she had bone spurs.
Okay.
He always said she was an avid walker. Well, my mom was 83, and like I say, she's spry. We have videos of her dancing. She loved to. She's spry, but she could not walk long distances anymore. It hurt her.
Sure.
So she's not an avid walker. I think that's what I don't like. He tries to make it sound like it was 14 years ago. He even showed them pictures, 16 years ago now. From that time period, my mom does not look like that anymore, number one, which really bugged me when you're trying to find her in an audience of strangers. So.
You felt like he was maybe pushing a narrative that wasn't correct?
Yes, all along. He tried to make it sound like, okay, first, in one article, his first article, he says the family was so sure I was not right for her. Well, he fails to tell you that he had a criminal record and we were just concerned. Actually, I told my mom when I was apologizing to her, I said, you would have done the same for me. And she didn't say one word. So I knew she held no grudge and she understood.
Mainly,
He did try to create, that's what I felt. That is a perfect word for it. All along, he tried to create this narrative beginning on day one. When I went to the door, because like I said, I live far away. When I got there, I went to the door, which was cracked, and I asked him if he had the door open a bit. I asked him if he wanted to join us, and he says, no, oh no, putting his hands in front, like I was a plague or something. Because he's upset that my sister hung up on him. That's the whole issue there. And then he says, we spoke a little bit, and he says, as I was leaving and I didn't say anything, he said, he had brought up that the sheriffs were there or something, and he said, yes, they've been there before. And I thought that was really odd, but I didn't say anything, but I kept it in my head. Well, I think he was creating the narrative for when my mother went missing in 2020, should it come up. And he lied. The sheriffs never came to his house, ever. The entire 8 years he was living there. So I don't understand why you do stuff like this. I can understand feeling a little bit guilty, but I don't know, I
Yeah.
don't know.
So your mom, this most recent time, your mom went missing November 2021. But she had, well, again, you can maybe explain this better. There was an incident where she may have been gone before. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, prior to 2021, my mother had gone missing, according to Chris. She had walked away from a grocery store and was found on a two-lane road a two it goes through Santa Margarita. It leads to Santa Margarita Preserve. There are no street lights, very few homes, and there are homes, but they're far apart. People get the wrong idea about all of Southern California. There are still little alcoves that are not as densely populated. And anyway, she was found walking against traffic by a fireman who passed her up the first time and went by again, and he just thought something was weird. So he went by and he talks to my mom, and takes a little while to get her in the car, but he finally gets her into the car because she was disorientated, and he eventually drives her to the Fallbrook substation. And because her ID did not have her current address, the sheriffs, have to, I don't know how they did it. They said through SD&G, through power records. I'm not sure how they did it, but they get Chris and Mom's address, call him, and he comes and picks her up. We were contacted by the fireman's wife through social media when Mom went missing in 2021. We did not know anything about that incident in August of 2020.
And what was the official, was there any kind of medical exam done? Was there an official reason why she had wandered off? Was it something to do with dementia or?
Yeah, well, I think that's what everybody assumed, but there was nothing done by a professional that I'm aware of to confirm that. And I have many thoughts as far as that is concerned. Uh, yeah.
So then November 2021, she goes missing again. Can you tell us how that unfolded? How you found out she was missing and what happened early on?
The story from Chris is that my mom and him got in an argument over a family photo, the placement of a family photo, and that my mom walked off in a huff with her purse. Um, and he went to look for her. He says he uses the word dusk a lot. So right before sunset, November, of course, it's not daylight savings time, so it gets darker quicker. And he couldn't find her. Um, so he calls his sister. And I have questions about the time myself, because I finally did get from the sheriffs the log, the deputy log of that night. And it looks like he called the station at 1916 military time. So that is 7:16 p.m., right? I haven't, but in the paper, they report 8:16. So there's something wrong there. Anyway, he waits to call the sheriff till at least 7 p.m. 16. And when he calls them, he tells them all about our mom, that she has dementia and stuff, but he does not want them. He just wants a sheriff to call him back. He does not want them to come over. About roughly an hour or so later, but I also noticed let me go back. I also noticed on that police report that they do dispatch deputies to look for her, even though they didn't go to her home, because they're looking on Duluth and etc. But the deputies aren't dispatched to his home until an hour or longer later than his original call. And he calls my sister first because she's in Fallbrook, almost 9 p.m. to tell us. And of course, it takes me a while to get there. It takes my brother longer. And it's dark. I mean, it's November. So my sister was so upset because she lives in Fallbrook. She was upset with him because why didn't he call sooner? In daylight hours. She was right there. So that's why she hung up. She didn't want to say something. She just hung up and wanted to go search. And that just stuck in his craw. He just never forgot that the entire time. And we were such bad people, because she hung up on him. And that was basically that night. We went searching. It was foggy. They could not send the copter up because of the fog. And, it really thwarted the search for her waiting that long. And it's not that I don't think my mother could have survived that night. It was not that. It was cold, but it was not that cold. She may have had medical issues or whatever, but certainly she would have survived a night. And, he was convinced that she could not. He was convinced. He referred to my mom in the past tense less than 12 hours after. The next morning, he told me in the past tense when we had a telephone conversation, and I called the sheriffs. His behavior just seemed more than odd to me. Law enforcement thinks it's odd, and of course there's no evidence, which is what law enforcement needs, but to me it's more than odd. And he didn't search he never searched with us. He always searched by himself. Thankfully for us, we were out the next day early. We had a poster made. We were out 11/4. She was reported missing 11/3, so we were out early 11/4 distributing flyers, and we met and talked to a lot of people. We talked to the volunteer dog handlers who told me they caught my mom's scent up on a road that goes right in front of their neighborhood, and law enforcement does not have a record of that. I mean, our case finally went from Fallbrook substation to San Diego. And when I told San Diego that, he didn't know what I was talking about. So, she was never seen on video after 11/2 or in any of the sightings. We tracked them all down from early in the morning to whatever time. We tracked them all down. One of us would go wherever it was and track them down. It was not my mom. None of them.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you're basically out there looking, trying to do stuff on your own, but not having any luck, not finding any signs of your mom. How quickly did a private investigator get involved in this?
Oh, we waited. About February. We had a woman that we met on a search early on November 5th. Her name was Rena. She did so much for us. She's a search and rescue person by profession. She flies all over the world and usually disasters. But she was following the story and she helped us. She works a lot with law enforcement, so we did things according to how they would accept it. Like when we did searches, we did grid searches. We did searches 1.5 miles from using my mother and Chris's house as the center. We went 1.5 miles out. Anyway, we did all of these searches and I was getting frustrated. And by February, I hired a private investigator. There was one that was working with Chris, but his name is Tony Campbell, and he started working with him in November. But he also contributes to the local newspaper, and I am just suspicious. So I didn't want to hire him, and he was working with Chris. I felt like he was trying to get information for Chris. That's how I felt.
Hmm.
So we worked with Rena, like I said, and it was with her that we would go. She's amazing. No matter what time, day or night, she's off in her truck with her and tracking down sightings, all kinds of stuff. So, and then of course, somebody can't be with you. They're all volunteering their time, which I will be forever grateful for. These are all, people who have either gone through the same thing and they help people that have missing family members. And they do it all for free, where they have foundations that you can contribute to. But anyway, I knew she couldn't be with us forever. So we got a private investigator. She'll still help us, but I mean, she can't be out there boots to the ground forever. She helps a lot of people. We hired him, or we got in contact with him, I think in February or March, and he wanted to know the whole story. He's a retired Riverside cold case detective. So he started from scratch and talked with Rena, talked with the detective who's on our case, talked to everybody. Went over the whole case again, and was able to track down my mother's car, which Chris had sold back in January. He didn't stay in Fallbrook. I mean, he was ready to leave fairly quickly. So back to the detective, he tracked down my mother's car and the owner, and he had several dates to search through the car, but they got cold feet and it would never happen. So eventually we couldn't afford him. He donated a lot of time too. And we had to part ways. He'll still talk to me, and I'm sure he still has notes on it. So
Got to be tough not having any of the answers, and the people that are trying to help you, they're not able to find anything solid either. And then you've got in the background, you've got Chris sort of selling off your mom's stuff. Was that disturbing to you to find out that he was selling off some of your mom's stuff?
well, from the very beginning, he was mad at us because of what my sister did, and because the people in the town, I think, were questioning him too, because we weren't on social media till November 10th. I mean, I don't know why he was upset with us. I was still talking to him on the phone too, but anyway, he calls my sister-in-law, who could not be there because she cares for her dad, and he just rants and raves beginning November 5th about us. And it's he says all kinds of things, and I can go on forever. They're not very nice. One of the things he says is that Tammy's the only one who can collect Elena's artifacts. That's the exact word. Now, at this point, not any of us are thinking about her possessions. So, yeah, another extremely odd thing. He also has told, we found out later on during this time, he's told the private investigator he's working with, Tony Campbell, that he needs help getting a roommate, getting my mom's savings, and getting her Social Security. So, you put all that together, and he's not thinking of my mother. I just don't think he's thinking of my mother at all. He's thinking of himself. And so fast forward, he starts having a garage. He tells me that I can come pick up some of my mother's stuff in about January. And he has it ready for me. Well, when I got there, everything in the house is hers. They're not married. I mean, everything. Pictures on the wall we gave her. Furniture from one of her marriages, furniture she bought before she knew him, on and on and on and on. And I got upset and I took it all, except for what they bought together. And I mean, I could tell his face he was upset, but I mean, it's not that it was valuable either. It was just that it's my mother's. I walk in the house, she's not there, the radio's not on, she's not it just, I just couldn't see letting him have it to sell, you know?
Sure. I mean, it's sentimental, obviously, and you're worried about what happened to your mom, and it seemed like he
Right.
was worried about just getting rid of all of her stuff.
Exactly. And I mean, she had stuff, she kept everything. She had stuff that was she had a stamp collection from, um, and other stuff. And my daughter got upset about that. And we got it back. He did try to sell. We didn't get everything because I couldn't stay there. And I didn't really want what I had. It's just that, how dare you, I didn't really want, it's just like, how dare you do that to us? And, so I wanted the pictures and she did have something of my grandmother's, a little vase. But after that, after this was January, beginning of February, he advertised some other stuff on Craigslist. And we went over there, and my sister and some other family members went over there, and there was a little bit of a confrontation. And my daughter was really upset. And anyway, we got some of the other stuff. And then he packed up. He'd already sold my mother's car, and he was moved out by April. And when I was getting this stuff from my mom's house, um, I wasn't mean to him or anything. I just simply told him the facts. This is my mom's. There was no big confrontation. My brother was with me, though. He's a big guy. And I asked him, well, where are you going? And he told me, you're not my parole officer. None of your business. Just like that. And, I didn't, I was like, okay. Then finally he said that uh, he was going to stay in one of his father's properties in Orange County. But I didn't really want his address. I mean, he was supposed to give it to law enforcement. I'm not going to be visiting him. I would like to put posters up by where he's living, just because I don't think he said everything about my mother, about what happened. And so I did find out also that another thing to just illustrate how Chris is, the entire 14 years that I knew him, he would refer to his father, his name is Tom Cataldo, as the gigolo. I've met the man twice, once at their celebration when they did not actually legally get married, but they had a ceremony. And I had him over my house at one of my mother's birthday parties. Well, come to find out, and I knew he had a foundation, his father, Chris's father, Tom. He had a foundation he had started because his wife had a disease of the eye. And he started a foundation for children with that same disease. Well, after this happens, one of the family members looks him up. That Tom was a very well respected man for creating this foundation for this disease, right? But all the time that I knew Chris, his father was a gigolo. Blah blah blah. I mean, he rarely said good things about his father. And he would kind of like try to be joking about it. My mom liked the guy. I know that, but she didn't know much about the foundation. And he passed away last couple of years. He was like 95. He was long lived. But I mean, that's just, usually when you know somebody, or at least me, you sit down, you get to know each other. I mean, all the nitty gritty, right? That never happened with him. He was always on the surface. So,
Hmm. So it sounds like he's pretty much moved on, moved away, sort of out of touch with you guys. Is that correct?
oh yeah, I don't want to, unless he can be productive. I don't want to, if he's out there looking for my mom, I'll apologize, but I don't think he is.
Was he cooperative with police? Do you know if he talked to them and was cooperative as far as anything they wanted to know?
Well, I know they interviewed him more than once. I know that he volunteered to take a lie detector test, and then when he was approached by law enforcement, he refused. Apparently, his excuse was that uh, he was too upset with us, and that would come through. And he was advised. He had contacted an attorney on the advice of Tony Campbell, the private eye, and the attorney took. He had contacted a criminal attorney, and the attorney told him no. That was his answer. Now, see, I know there's all different kinds of people in the world, because the detective told me that he would not take a lie detector's test, which was another discussion, but I would. If I didn't do anything, I would.
Yeah. And I know a lot of attorneys do advise people not to take them, and they're not admissible in court. But, I can see on one hand where someone wanting to clear their name will say, yeah, I don't mind taking one. But, I understand why people don't sometimes. But, from your perspective, you're trying to, you want everything out there. You want the truth. And if somebody doesn't have anything to hide, you want them to
Right.
share everything they can. I certainly get
And
where you're coming from.
I think San Diego County sheriffs would not railroad him with this. And you know what I mean? I don't, anyway, I, I did not like that he didn't take a lie detector test.
So,
But
and one thing I wanted to talk about was sort of along the lines of getting rid of her stuff, getting rid of everything she had, selling her car. Did they have shared finances, or did they have their own separate finances? What was that situation?
okay, yeah, they're not married, um, legally. So my mother kept all of her finances. They both did separate. So she was receiving Social Security widower's benefits. And I think originally she did that because she thought she would lose her benefits if she got married, which is not the case today. I don't know about in 2007 or 8 when they were together, but it's not true today. You can remarry after 60s, after the age of 60, I think, if you're collecting widower's benefits, and still receive her benefits. But anyway, they did have separate finances. He
Okay.
he did not he was not employed the entire time. He was employed sporadically. Uh, so back to the beginning, where he had told Tony Campbell that he wanted his help to get a roommate, my mom's savings and her Social Security. Um, when Chris, started all to move and stuff in February, I ended up calling Social Security. I had enough. I mean, there was nothing else I could do. I know this is all about money. I don't want her money. I don't want him to have it. So I got her Social Security stopped with, it ended up going to the Inspector General's office to get that done, and which is another story too. Our government, it doesn't work quickly. Well, I think we all know that. And they also, Social Security cannot take that money back. I find that so hard to believe. And then Chris in March takes in 13 or 18. I'd have to have the statement here. ATM withdrawals, the max at each time, and sometimes more than once a day, max being 500. He ends up taking $7,900 out of my mom's account, and that's not illegal.
Oh,
They're- yeah.
so he's steadily draining money from her account, and but meanwhile they're not married, and it's technically not his, but it's, you find out it's not illegal to do it though.
In my book, it is. I certainly know if somebody got into my account, I don't think they want to pursue it. I can't tell you for sure because I don't have a law in front of me that says this is what they're basing it on. He had done her finances before and had her permission, but she's been gone. She's been gone for 5 months now. I'm writing our California representative. I think that's horrible. I mean, I just, I don't want her money. Then again, it's expensive. This is good news. We got a billboard on Interstate 15 that'll go up February 7th with Mom's info. That isn't cheap. If our government's going to give away almost $18,000, there's still $10,000 in her account. Then, buy a billboard.
Use something productive instead of just letting it get drained by like Chris.
Well, yeah, he won't touch it now because, of course, he knows. I'm sure they interviewed him, the Inspector General. But, when I bring that to their attention, both the Inspector General and the sheriffs, they didn't do anything. 79-year-old.
And there's also, there was a reward in this case. Is that correct? How much is that?
Yeah. Okay. Now, on the positive side for Chris, back in December, we decided to do Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers are San Diego County Sheriffs or Crime Stoppers, period. They give you $1,000. We contributed $4,500 and he contributed $4,500 to make a total of $10,000 reward.
Okay.
So he did. I asked him and he kind of, he went with it initially. There was paperwork to sign. But he did have questions. And I guess, I don't know, you can take that either way. He asked if somebody kidnapped her and called San Diego Crime Stoppers, would they get the money?
Mm-hmm.
I guess if you're thinking of all angles, like I kind of do at times, that may be a question. I don't know. He had all kinds of questions like that I thought were odd.
So basically now after, this amount of time has passed by, it's been over 2 years.
Yeah.
What is the latest on the case? What's going on? And what are you hoping maybe hasn't been done to this point that you think should be done?
Well, I tried to get another search because after a period of time, and many people will tell you this, you don't get many volunteers, and that, that's normal. My sister and I still walk around Fallbrook and we check certain areas. We still do that. So we're trying to get a lot of foundations has helped me. As a matter of fact, Kathy Tarr from the Fowler O'Sullivan Foundation is out in Fallbrook right now, going over the area again. She helps hikers. So my mom's case isn't really her forte, but she wants to help. It's not really her group, what she does, but she's out there today. So we're trying to get searches started. In October, we started a public Facebook group by the name of Bring Elena Home Official, where we discuss all the latest in her case, and we've adopted wildflowers for her just to get people involved in it, and contribute if they have nothing to say. There's discussions. Again, I update it. Missing in America, a woman by the name of Heather, who they have also been great. She East Coast, New York and California, the billboards are outrageously high. I mean, if you go where parts of the other parts of the country, they're way lower. So she negotiated the price down to a fraction for this billboard that we got going up in February 7th. She administers our Bring Elena Home page, public page on Facebook, and she's just been a great help. Not only is she great at social media, she's done posters. She's introduced me to podcasters, etc. They're great. So if you can read all about Mom's case on Facebook, that group. You can also, if you Google her name, we've done interviews with local TV stations and local newspapers. We also have a link tree that shows everything we've done for Mom. She's on NamUs. She's with a state attorney general. And then you can see all the media that we've done. So we're trying to get searches started again. It's just rained really hard here. So in the area we want to search, that can make a difference. Things get shifted.
Mm-hmm.
We want to get back there and search, and we want to keep her name out in the public so everybody knows her, so she's not forgotten.
Yeah. I mean, at this point now, is there any official lease theory on what happened to your mom, or maybe your own theory about what happened?
I have 3. I think the least likely is that she got in a car with people say, first she walked away and or Chris did something to her, or she got into a car. Well, I think getting into a car with somebody is the least likely, logically speaking, because unless that's a serial killer she got in the car with, I think they would have contacted law enforcement, right? I think if his story is correct, she's in Fallbrook. That terrain is unbelievable if you haven't been through there. There's mountains, small mountains. It's very mountainous, very different types of terrain. 1,300-acre Santa Margarita Preserve, where they frequented a lot. There's also a smaller one, Los Hilgueros, which has a pond. My mother doesn't swim. I have a feeling that she may be in Fallbrook, or Chris did something to her. That's my 2 theories.
And neither is a good outcome, not the outcome you're hoping for, I'm sure.
No, but I still hope. There was a man who was found back east 6 months after he disappeared, who was had the same problems as my mom, but that was 6 months. It's been almost 3 years. Logic would tell me she would have contacted me by now. I mean, we've been down so many roads. I mean, psychics and all types of things that I think she would have contacted me by now.
It's going to be tough to think of the possibilities at this point, that none of them are really good. At this point, you may be looking for a recovery and not a reunion.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Sheriffs, the second search, which San Diego was involved 2 weeks after Mom went missing. They did a second search, and I made the mistake and told the detective search and rescue, and he said no, search and recovery. So 2 weeks after, they were thinking that it wouldn't be a good outcome, and I guess logically they're correct. But still, I kind of get hope for that miracle that just might happen.
Yeah. Well, you definitely keep up the effort to try and find her and get the word out there, and we'll do our part to spread the word. And I hope you do find some answers here and figure out what happened.
Me too. I think we're not going to stop, so I hope we get answers too.
And there's one last thing I want to ask you. I meant to ask you this earlier in the episode. It was about the dog search, and I know there's a little hem-hawing on what actually the results were. I had read that there was that your mom's scent was tracked to a specific location, and there was a mechanic that supposedly saw her. Can you just clarify that report a little bit?
Yeah, those are two different incidents. As far as the dog searches, as far as law enforcement is concerned, her scent was never picked up. That's what I was told by my detective.
Okay.
Dogs are cadaver dogs that Rena had in a ravine during that first search for my mom. It was early in November. She was in a ravine early in November when we were searching. Chris pulled up in a car so he was higher, of course, they're in the ravine and he's on the road. And one of the dog handlers she was searching with, the dog ran up the hill, up the ravine towards his car, and the handler had to pull the dog back because the road, for fear of the dog getting hit. So they couldn't use that example, or Rena did not turn that into law enforcement because that's what happened. The dog didn't go straight to the trunk or whatever, which is what we thought. And that's why we wanted to track down the car. So then the mechanic, that was a sighting. The mechanic, Eric, he knew my mother and Chris, so he knows what she looks like. He's the owner of Fallbrook Auto Works. He said that he saw her on November 3rd. And he gave a time, I think it was between 1 and 2. But when he said he was out on a test drive. So 2 weeks later, when law enforcement from San Diego got involved, they pinned him down and he didn't keep any logs because we tried to get those. So what they did is there was a camera overlooking the area where he thought he saw my mother. So they looked for Eric test driving a vehicle, right? That's what they were looking for, since they did two things. They looked on November 2nd for my mother, on November 3rd for my mother in the area that he said he saw her. November 3rd is the date he said he saw her. Then they started looking for his car, Eric's car, to see when he did test drives. All those recordings that they looked at the whole day, November 2nd, November 3rd, and the others, my mother was not cited. That's according to law enforcement, and Rena was able to view some of the tapes, so she can confirm that. The private investigator, I think too much time had gone by, but he spoke to Rena about it and went to the location to form his own opinion. I guess.
Okay. So those things didn't lead anywhere. Maybe the mechanic was just mistaken. Maybe saw somebody else, or
earlier she did years before. Well, I don't really know if she walked that way. Her normal walking path was changed just before she went missing. My sister and my nephew knew her walking pattern, and he was not in her walking pattern. But that doesn't mean she hadn't walked there before. I really don't know why he thought he saw her on that day. Maybe he saw her weeks before. I don't know. I don't really know. But it was not true. It was not found on video.
Okay. That'd be frustrating not to have any
like if we were
confirmed sightings.
Yeah, and it was frustrating too, because the banks took forever. They will not release their film, and I can't for the life of me understand that.
Yeah.
Is there something going on in Fallbrook that they don't? I don't know. I don't get it. I just really want to get her poster out there. If somebody has seen something, no matter how small, or knows something, they can call Crime Stoppers Anonymous tip line is 888-580-8477.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Missing Persons. If you can provide any information to help solve the case we discussed in this episode, please contact the appropriate authorities.
If you enjoy this podcast, please take a moment to tell your friends about Missing Persons and invite them to listen to the show. Word of mouth will help us grow and bring these cases to a larger audience. You can also help us by taking a moment to rate and review Missing Persons on the platform you're listening to us now on. Just a reminder that new episodes of Missing Persons air every other Saturday. If you want to find us on social media, we're on Facebook at facebook.com/missingpersonspod. We're also on Twitter with the handle @missing_pod. And of course, you can find us and contact us through our website, missingpersonspodcast.com. On behalf of Jess Betancourt, this is Mike Morford saying thanks, and we'll see you next time on Missing Persons.